Hello and welcome to the NDTV Dialogues, a conversation of ideas. Today, the man who made headlines globally after his ruling on net neutrality, he's now making headlines again after taking on telcos over call drops. Joining me now is the chairman of the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, Sewak Sharma. Thank you very much, sir, for coming in.
Thank you very much, Sonia.
Mr. Sharma, a quiet, unassuming, hardworking bureaucrat took on one of the most powerful men in the world. You were trending globally at that time. Did you ever feel pressured of the implications of what your order may mean, and especially given the high-pitched campaign that accompanied the whole debate around this?
Well, first of all, let me tell you that I am not really, a high-powered fellow. I am a very normal, bureaucrat and a normal public servant. And actually, what we had done, we never thought it in those terms as to who is putting pressure and who is, saying what. We went specifically by the merit. So merit or basically, and we had an open mind when we started this whole debate and consultation paper. So I would say that I was just doing my duty.
You were never, because you at that time came out just about a week before your final report came out, you were quite tough about the kind of pressure that was being put on, the kind of opinions you were getting. You got, I think, some lakhs of opinions on one certain way for Facebook, and you made the point that you wouldn't take well to this pressure at all.
No, I don't think I ever made that point. What I said was that TRAI's consultation process actually goes like this, that we articulate the issues and then we ask certain questions and essentially ask people to contribute to those questions. What instead we got, and millions of these responses were not really addressing those questions. So what I had said was that we want to reach out to these people and actually request them that these are our questions, and we will be grateful if you could send us your specific answers to these questions, because then they will help us in formulating a policy on that issue. So this was essentially the conversation which we had, before the order was out.
So you didn't find it, as I said, when it became a Sewak Sharma versus Mark Zuckerberg, or when it became, as I said, when you were trending, did you find that an unusual situation?
Well, it may be unusual, but the whole issue was that, in fact, the free basics which you were mentioning, that was not even a part of our consultation process. We never, we never used, or we never said anything about a product, because I consider free basic as a product. And what we were actually consultation was going on was essentially differential pricing. And we had requested the concerned telecom service provider to suspend the commercial rollout of that product, essentially because that product was using that architecture of differential pricing. So essentially, it will be wrong to say that we were targeting a particular product or it was, the consultation was about a product.
Let me give you the arguments from the other side, because this has been discussed a lot as well. Mark Zuckerberg had written saying that who on the earth could be against this, because free basics looks at a concept like, if you have a free library, you don't have every book possible there. If you have basic healthcare, you won't have perhaps all the healthcare options available there. This is a way to provide internet to the poorest of the poor, the services that they need. Others have written saying that this is about the elite trying to keep the internet to themselves. It's not letting the internet be opened to the poor of India, to over 1 billion people. How would you look at those arguments?
No, I think I had said at that time also that we are certainly TRAI, or nobody else can have an argument that people should have access to the data or to the internet. And free, of course, the freer the better. So that's not really the issue. The issue was whether only one, you use that architecture of providing free data service only through one pipe. So let's say, it's like saying this, that I have certain number of shops in Connaught Place, and you will be having a discount on these shops only when you come through a particular road. That, I think, is not really appropriate. What we were saying is that, well, if you want to give discount on those shops, the discount should be available to anybody coming from any road. So long as the guy reaches that shop, he should be eligible for a discount. So essentially, we are not against free data. What we were saying is that you should not use this business model of providing that data through a given pipe.
It's interesting you use the word business model, because that's also what becomes controversial. When you Do you see this as a battle between the haves and have-nots for internet? How do we resolve that issue? Because it is true that in India, perhaps access to the internet will be like access to education in one sense. How do we provide this access?
Essentially, we are certainly for the access, and there are many issues which, I mean, the cost is one of the issues. I mean, whether you should have the data should be available at a cost or whether it should be available for free, that's only one of the issues. There are connectivity issues. There are issues of availability of the broadband to people of India. So there are larger issues in this whole situation. But on the specific issue of pricing, so long as the pricing discounts are secular in the sense that they are across all networks equally, there should be no problem, because they don't violate this basic principle of decoupling of the networks from the content. And that's precisely what we have said. We have dealt with the issue of the net neutrality from a tariff perspective. We are saying that there should be no differential tariff on the basis of the origin or the destination or the content. And that's basically the whole argument. So long as any model which does not violate this principle, we will be absolutely happy to work with anybody. We are in fact bringing out, or we are, because we had asked that question in the consultation paper also. We had not said, we had said that differential pricing is one part, but we had said whether there are any other models available which can facilitate the free availability of free data. And now we are actually working out on various architectures to ensure that there are models available which can provide the discounts on the data irrespective of the type with which you approach that data.
Again, one of the hypes around this was this whole issue. We had a number of startup founders, the Paytm founders saying this is about the colonizing the internet, and India is not third world in digital at all, and why should we be colonized? Do you agree with that fight at all? Because then a Facebook board member came and said, oh, what's wrong with colonizing, and he got into trouble. Do you agree with that analogy of colonizing the
Sonia,
internet?
I will not go into those kinds of debates. Let me just give you one example as to what differential pricing consequence, just one simple example. If you allow differential pricing, it will mean that the telecom service provider, can actually differentially price the various websites. Now, let's take the example of banking. Some telecom service providers have got the payment bank's license also recently. So there is a bank, payment bank, which has got a telecom service provider as its owner or its partner or whatever. There are other banks like India Post. Now, India Post does not have a telecom service provider. What the TSPs can do, if you go to my bank, and as you know, banking is today all internet, all online. If you go to, especially in the rural areas, by the way, the micro ATMs and the biometric authenticated banking systems. So the telecom service provider says, if you go to my bank, I will not charge you any money. But if you go to this other bank, India Post, for example, I'll charge you 10 times the price. So obviously what you are doing, you are in a way creating a situation in which you are promoting your own bank and actually ensuring that nobody visits the other bank, which is essentially then these startups and these small guys who put up a website, who put up a product, or who are doing something, they will now be at a disadvantage, because the larger players will be able to, or the players who have got a tie-up with the telecom service providers will be able to have access at and they will have a disadvantage compared to the other guys, these startups.
Mr. Sharma, you clearly seem to like taking on powerful corporates, because your current battle is with, India's cell phone operators who say that they should not be made to pay to the customer for call drops. Why have you taken on this battle? This is all in 6 months. You've had a busy 6 months.
I don't know whether you want to, you may like to call it a battle. Essentially what we are doing is, as a regulator, our job is to ensure a balance of interest of all these stakeholders. And in the telecom world, the stakeholders are obviously telecom service providers, the government, and the people. And what we are trying to do is to ensure quality of service to the telecom consumers. And that, I don't know, some people may see it as anti-industry or therefore taking on this lobby or anything like that. I don't see it that way. In fact, I always tell my telecom service provider friends that don't consider this as something which is adversarial relationship. Essentially consider this, that this is essentially we are trying, as a regulator, we are trying to do our job to ensure that the people or the consumers who pay for the services, they have a right to get good services. And if there is a deficiency in service, that should be compensated. And what we have recently done is essentially a very notional kind of compensation which we had issued, and of course the matter is sub judice, so I will not like to elaborate much on that. But essentially this is not really a battle, but it is essentially some kind of role which we are playing as regulators.
No, though interestingly, of course, the courts have upheld your order so far, but the matter is sub judice. But just to ask, the industry's point of view is that this is not entirely fair, because the call drops are not because of what they're doing, but because of the infrastructure they're getting. So they're saying we're the victims, yet we're being made to pay.
Well, let me not really delve on that, because those arguments have been made in the court of law, Honorable High Court of Delhi, and the counter arguments have been made by TRAI, and order has come, and you must have gone through that order. So I don't think I should really sort of visit those issues, because whether whose fault it is, and all those issues have been dealt with.
The larger principle but of accountability is an interesting one. You do feel as a regulator accountability of services should be given?
Absolutely. I feel that, you see, one of the things which was actually one of the arguments which was made was that if we are meeting the benchmarks of 2% call drops, then there is no reason for compensating call drops. And the basic principle is that while you can have industry benchmarks, now does that extinguish the right of an individual consumer to seek redress if there is a deficiency in service? So that's basically the issue. And the Honorable Court has upheld that indeed both these things are not necessarily contradictory.